All right, what is up, my homies, and welcome to Day 2 Gray Gaming. Today, on another episode of Settlement Builds for Noobs, we are taking a look at Echo Lake Lumber. Now, I'm very excited about this episode because I recently conducted a community poll, and you guys selected this as the site that you wanted to see, and I decided, as usual, that I was going to try something a little bit different, something that I don't normally branch out and do. This site does come with a fair bit of challenge. While most of the structures and outbuildings are scrappable, there are a lot of things that you can't get rid of without mods or console commands. So the main structure is very dilapidated, as you can see. It's next to impossible to patch all the holes without the use of rug glitches or other things like that. And you know me, this is settlement builds for noobs, so we're going to try and avoid any advanced settlement building styles like that. So let's go ahead and see, with these types of challenges, what we are able to produce at Echo Lake Lumber. All right, so here we are at our newly finished Echo Lake Lumber, and I have to say I am tickled pink with how this turned out. This has been a very experimental build, and I've been playing around with a lot of different elements, things that I don't normally use because they're a little bit too scrappy for my personal aesthetic style. Normally I use the concrete build set, which is almost entirely 90-degree right angles. The scrappier aesthetic here opens us up to many more 30-degree, 50-degree angles and really helps improve the geometry of what we're working with. I started out trying to replicate something that I had done at my Sunshine Tidings co-op, and it kind of evolved into a somewhat fort-style build, which is something that I had not planned on doing, and I am absolutely thrilled with how it turned out. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the Echo Lake Lumber Mill at ground level. All right, so here we are at ground level, and we are here at the main entrance to the settlement. So unlike most of my other settlements, we are not doing a wall build or anything like that. We are simply taking a look at what we can accomplish with outbuildings. What can we accomplish by just adding to the settlement and be able to defend it without the need for walls and these big impenetrable fortresses that you normally see me build. And so we do have some of these elevated shooting platforms just to give us some defense. When this site is attacked, usually it's attacked from just right here in the middle of the road. So it's not normally a site that you have to worry about enemies attacking from multiple different directions all at once. So you can usually plan for some defenses right here being able to do the trick. And these are all heavy laser turrets. Up here, I have many ballistic turrets as well. So we kind of have this crossfire of different types of damage coming in from multiple directions. So it's very difficult for enemies to cope with that sort of killing field. All right, so we're going to kind of just go around the settlement. This is kind of a haphazard settlement, so you can't really just go around the perimeter like we normally do and then go to the inside because there's lots of insides and perimeters. But here we have our hotel. You know me, I like to throw in some minor accommodations for traveling caravans. We do have a caravan trading post here, and we do have Cricket visiting this site. So in here in this hotel, it's pretty much just a flop house. There's a number of different ratty beds. There's an old diner booth, there's a table with various different styles of chairs laying around, and there's a couple different styles of lights just so that you can see your way around in the dark. So it's nothing fancy by any stretch of the imagination, but it is kind of this in-world explanation that, hey, you're on the very outer edges of these caravans' trade routes, so you're probably going to want to be well rested before you turn back around and head back to the Commonwealth. So that's what I hope to accomplish here. Around here, in this kind of rattier style building, is kind of the idea is that these are all different components that were scrapped that weren't considered good enough for the main outbuildings that are for human occupation. So we just have a single door barn for our Brahmin. So we've got 3 Brahmin in here, we've got 2 feeders and a watering trough, and we also have a bale of hay. So our Brahmin should be perfectly happy in their new home and relatively safe and free of the elements. One nice thing about the Brahmin pen is that there is open sunlight, so they're not just constantly kept indoors. They can kind of sit out and catch some rays now and again. All right. So stepping around here to the side, we do have our open bay market area. And this is nothing fancy by any degree of the imagination, especially with some of my newer market builds where I've got mannequins and shelving set up. But here, it's just a place for people to stop. And I kind of avoided setting up too much decoration in this trading post because this is open bay. There's no way to secure anything, and we don't really want to deal with thieves making off with a lot of our goods. So when this isn't manned, it's just an empty trading floor. So that's really what we're trying to accomplish here, is just a trading floor. And all 4 of these stores are manned, but whoever's in charge of the general store must be hanging out in Barracks A for some reason. And Barracks A is going to be the very last structure that we view because it's the one that has the most going on, and it's kind of what I'm most proud of. I absolutely love how this turned out. Okay. So this main structure is absolutely crumbling to pieces. It's next to impossible for me to figure out how to do anything with this without rug glitches. I've seen some people who are able to rug glitch in complete floors and walls and all that fun stuff, but as far as using a no glitch build, it's next to impossible to get anything decent in here. So there's very little being used in the main lumber mill office area. We do have an entrance back here to our 2 fusion generators, and that's about it there. And I was able to throw in 2 sets of walls so that we can fit an arcade in here. So the arcade is our usual fare. We've got some of these Vault 99 slot machines. Vault 99. Wow, my brain is not dealing with numbers today. These Vault 88 slot machines. We also have all of these arcade stations from the Creation Club. So all of the different Pip-Boy arcade games are here, so you can play them. We also have a number of different games from the Nuka-cade in Nuka World. So we do have Whack-A-Kami, we do have Atomic Rollers, and we do have the Hoop Shot available as well. And for the most part, I was able to patch most of the holes in the ceiling as well. So there are floors up there. However, there's nothing that you can really do on the upper floors. They are so crumbled and falling over that I really could not find a decent way to patch these and get any decent use out of them. So I just railed it off. I just considered, you know what, let's not even waste our time trying to fix this. And in fact, I have wasted a lot of time on other builds or other playthroughs trying to fix it. And without those more advanced build styles like rug glitching, pillar glitching, all that, it's next to impossible to repair this building in any way that actually makes it look decent. So stepping down here, we have our workshop and dog kennel. So we do have a pair of doggies here. We have a Rottweiler and we have a pit bull. Both of them were purchased from Ericsson. You cannot build dog traps at this site. I think that's an intentional limitation of the workshop to force you to go to Ericsson to purchase dogs rather than just trapping them whenever you like. But we do have a couple doggies. And of course, we have our normal workshop fare. We have our armor, chemistry station, power armor, and weapons workbenches all set up here. And so stepping down here, we have access to our greenhouse. And our greenhouse is pretty standard fare by now, but I'll go ahead and check it out in case this is your first time visiting the channel. So I didn't go as broad spectrum as I normally do. Normally with my greenhouses, I give every type of food that you can possibly plant, but we are kind of limited on space here. And I wanted to go more for plants that I normally run low on. So I have tons of carrots being produced at other settlement sites. And I normally don't use that much gourds, melons, or razor grain. They're usually very specific use cases that I use those for. So your mute fruit, corn, and potatoes, however, these are things that I produce in very large quantities because they are useful for constructing adhesive. So I have all three of those here being tended and grown, and we have a pretty ample supply of all of them. There is some razor grain here in the back, so we are producing a lot of that, and I do use a lot of razor grain for Brahmin traps. So we have all of these various different types of food. There isn't a single staple crop, so even though these aren't in-game mechanics in the real world, you don't want to eat the same food every single day. You'll end up developing nutritional deficiencies, and you don't want to have a single staple crop where some sort of natural disaster, whether it's a disease that only affects that plant, whether it is having too much moisture or too little moisture, too much sunlight or too little sunlight, too cold temperatures, too hot, etc. It's not going to wipe out all of your plants. It's only going to affect one of them, hopefully. So you have a much better chance of weathering those natural disasters if you have a wide variety of crops. Plus, you can perform crop rotation. So all these in real world, in reality mechanics are something that I tend to plan for with my greenhouses. Also, because we are on the island, this is in Maine, people here tend to eat fiddleheads, which are juvenile ferns. So even though they don't actually produce food, there are these Creation Club ferns in buckets, which I have thrown out here, so that the in-game explanation is that they are harvesting fiddleheads from these ferns. So it's kind of an additional regional food item that you would expect to find if people living on the island were growing their own food. So I included that also at my visitor center as well. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at Barracks B. So this was actually the first structure that I constructed at this site, and it was kind of an early prototype. I kind of based these off of what I had done at my Sunshine Tidings co-op for my mayor's home, for my player home there, and I kind of tried to make it a little more industrial. So instead of going with the barn build set, I went with the corrugated metal that's all rusted through. Again, it doesn't make a lot of real world sense that you would be using these sorts of building materials, but a lot of people like the more industrial, scrappy, rusty aesthetic, so I went with it here. Also, this is a lumber mill, so it makes a little bit more sense to be using those materials as well. And so I went with this to try and replicate that player home at Sunshine Tidings, but on a larger scale so that you could actually use it as kind of a community living quarters. And it's getting a bit stormy out, but that's okay. We're about to go inside. All right, so we've got little kitty. We have several cats who kind of wander around the settlement when they're not lost and trapped in these weird rotational circles. But here we have one of our barracks. So these barracks aren't as well lit as my usual concrete structures. However, they're more than well enough lit that people can get around. So here we have our barbershop. So each of the barracks does more than just serving as a barracks. There's also various amenities built into each of them, especially Barracks A. Our barbershop is nothing fancy. It's just a barber chair, a garbage can to put people's hair, and a couple seats for people to wait at. And it's built into one of these turrets. So each of the four corners of these barracks has a turret. Get out of my way, person. And so the people will just come here and stare. So you can look out and have a very good field of vision when it's not all stormy. Let me take care of the storm real quick. All right, so here you can see you have a much better field of vision, and you can see pretty much in all directions from this point. So that's kind of what I hoped to accomplish here is the turret. Also, Each of the living quarters has its own ceiling that lies below the main angled ceiling. So you can actually use this for upper storage. So I had assumed that you could do that in my Sunshine Tidings co-op video for my mayor home. But here I actually put it to the test, and you actually can throw various containers of different styles on top of these roofs. So this gives you additional storage in addition to actually being your player homes. So up here, we have another one of our turrets. It has a much less commanding view just because of where it's located, but it does also give you a view of all of the various different turrets, which looks out over and defends this particular point. So all of the rooms are very similar. I won't go into each and every one of them, but each of them follows the same basic formula, which by now, if you're familiar with my channel, you probably know about. So each of these rooms has 2 beds, so 2 people to a room. Each person just gets a clean vault-style bed and a Vault-Tec style trunk. And I threw in various posters on the walls just because this is kind of modeled after a pre-war fort, and so I'm kind of taking that ideology of no gear adrift. Keep your stuff put away, and so stuff attached to the walls is fine, so long as it's not dangerous. So we do have various posters where normally you're not just allowed to throw stuff willy-nilly if you're in a fort. And so all of the rooms are that same basic layout, so I won't go into each one. So just various posters on the wall for various different types of decoration. So here we do have one picnic table. This isn't the only place people have to come to eat. This is just a table for here in the barracks. So if people want to sit around and play a game of cards, if they want to just talk, share a meal together, whatever, they can do that here. And so this isn't the primary dining hall. This is just a table put in here for their own enjoyment. And there are 2 lavatories here, which, oh my gosh, I think I forgot to put indoors. I completely forgot to put indoors. Let's fix that. All right, there we go. Now there's a door. So we do have 2 lavatories here. There's a men's room and a women's room. And it's just a toilet and a sink. Normal accommodations by my build standards, but a lot of people often tend to overlook or forget that, you know, people got to do their business somehow. So there is a place here for you to do that. Strolling up to another one of the turrets. Again, we have a pretty commanding view of the surrounding area when it's not all foggy like this. I won't go into the other turret. By now you've probably got the gist of it. All right, we'll fix that fog. Okay. So we do have one industrial water purifier, and because this is kind of waterfront, I threw in a pair of docks. So the docks extend to here because there's like a log roll game. So one of the logs is just beyond the buildable area, actually 2 of them, so you can't actually get there. So they were kind of doing a lumberjack games style thing here. And so I just kind of extended these intentionally short docks around. So, man, the weather moves in here quick. And so here, I just built a fishing pier, essentially, that goes around the outside and kind of protects the water purifier from your larger critters like mirelurks. And so that's it for that main area. And then around here to the side, I did my best to build a boardwalk over what little pier is here. So the pier here just held a crane. If you looked at my earlier flyby images, it's really only extends to about this point where you see this extending off into the distance. And so I built this out as far as you could. I built a fairly large boardwalk. So the idea is this is kind of your general gathering area. It is where you can have your company PT. This is kind of modeled after a fort after all, so view all these people as military members-ish. And so we do have some gym equipment here as well. So we do have your weightlifting sets. One of them is possessed by a demon, and a couple pommel horses as well. But other than that, this is very wide open. You can use this for whatever you want it for. And I'll fix that weather once again. Okay, so once again, we have one of these elevated turret platforms, just in case something comes around the side. I don't think I've ever experienced anything that actually does come from up the boardwalk area, but just in case, I do have it posted here to be able to offer covering fire. It also provides overlapping fields of fire with the turrets that are constructed around Barracks A and with those constructed on Barracks B. So it kind of gives you 3 points of defense that you can coordinate with. And so stepping around to the outer edges of the settlement, you can just kind of see the size of Barracks A. So Barracks A was actually constructed after Barracks B. B was one prototype, A was another. And so the idea was I was just playing around with different ways of constructing the same type of structure. And one of these is actually just 2 structures blended together. And I absolutely adore how A turned out. As I've said, I need to stop gushing over my own handiwork. But let's go ahead and take a step into Barracks A and once again fix that weather. All right. So as we step into Barracks A, there are 2 separate corridors that run all the way through, so 1 door on each side. So like the last one, we do have lavatories built into the lower turrets. So here we have 2 lavatories on this side, and there are 2 lavatories on the opposite side as well. So 2 men's rooms, 2 ladies' rooms. There are 4 rooms in these barracks, just like there are in the other. And just like before, we have our turrets that we can come out and get a commanding view. However, unlike the other one, these turrets are much larger. The other turrets in Barracks B are a single floor square in width and depth. These are 4x4s, so they're much larger turrets to give you a much larger view. I did stick with the same number of turrets, so 2 heavy laser turrets and 2 ballistic turrets at each corner. So they are still well defended, they just aren't any more heavily defended than Barracks B was. And so just like Barracks A, you can see there are various different types of containers stowed in the storage lofts in this site. So stepping in here to the clinic, so like I said, this one has a lot more stuff going on. Our clinic is built into Barracks A, so this is kind of the primary defensive structure that we use during an attack. So the clinic is pretty cramped, but not too bad. We have a couple beds just in case people need to convalesce here. We do have various posters and signage related to health and wellness. We do have our doctor, of course, and we do have a Phoropter, which is manned as well. So you can even come in here and get eye exams. So just like the other one, same basic layout. Everyone gets a trunk and a bed, keep their stuff in, and then they have various posters. This guy, he was a Silver Shroud enthusiast. He has every Silver Shroud poster you can get in the Wasteland. All right, so stepping in here, we do have a galley built in here. So this is where everyone comes for food. So we do have our tier 3 bar setup. We have an Eatronic. We have various Nuka-Cola style booths. So they're cleaner than that booth that you saw I don't remember where I threw that. That must have been in the hotel since it was rattier in appearance. But we do have a full service galley. It's got a garbage can. It's got a stove for cooking, a stainless steel counter for preparing food on, a sink, and a Creation Club refrigerator. So it looks like it's packed full of food, even though it's a empty container. So just there for aesthetic purposes. And so like with most military installations, your galley is going to become a secondary point for triaging the wounded. So I did make sure to include some of these stainless steel tables, which could double as operating tables as well. So keeping with that military aesthetic. Around here, we also have our usual drink station setup. So we do have our Vault 88 soda machine. We also have an additional drink dispenser and an ice machine, as well as a Nuka-Cola mixing machine, and another garbage can for people to throw their garbage when they're done. So over here on the opposite side, we have 2 more lavatories. So 2 men's rooms, 2 women's rooms. I need to actually mark them. I forgot to put signs up. And once again, stepping up into our turret, we can once again get a commanding view when we're not in the middle of a radiation storm. So here we are. We have a lovely twilight view of the surrounding region. So here we've got another one of these rooms. We have a Vim poster, and that's pretty much it, I think. Some are more heavily decorated than others, just kind of because some people prefer decorations over others. So things like this large Brognac poster. But anyway, I'll stop going into each of the bedrooms. You've seen them all by now. So here on this side, we do have one of 2 showers. So these turrets are housing showers instead of lavatories. So we do have a changing room, so a bench and a locker to keep your stuff. And we do have our actual shower, which will take care of your rads if you need it to. And so there is one in each of these turrets on this end of Barracks A. So I won't go into both of them. But just once again, oh, that's kind of a lovely sunset in-game. Why can't we always get that here on the island? Because the island is always foggy, you idiot. Okay, so here we have yet another view. And here, this one has a nice view of the boardwalk area as well, this open courtyard. So you get a pretty different view in each of the turrets as well. So it's kind of nice for that purpose. And so the only thing we're really missing is the captain's quarters. So this is Far Harbor. The leader of any settlement is always referred to as captain. So I threw in a player home here as well. So there is a captain's quarters. It is more luxurious than any of the others. Still pretty decent though. Oh geez, I've got booths flipping through the wall. I should probably fix that at a later date. But anyway, we do have various potted plants and decorations, various military and nautical type of decorations as well. So we've got a pair of these rather nice Creation Club couches. There is a Vault 88 couch, which is almost identical. It's just red. And we do have a wraparound desk so that you can write letters, disassemble rifles, whatever you need to do. We also have this Creation Club locker instead of the Vault 88 lockers, which I normally throw into like the shower changing rooms, and a Creation Club bed, which is identical to the Vault 88 bed, except for it has a couple pillows on it, and it has a green blanket instead of a gray one. So, all in all, just my usual player home accommodations, everything you need to store all of your stuff that you accumulate. And then once again over here, we've got a kitty who for some reason is standing over here instead of hanging out at his bowl. But it's the same story. One shower, it's a decon chamber by design, so if you use it, it will take care of your rads. I wonder why at this site the water is almost invisible. You can see it, but other sites it's definitely a more visible animation when you activate the decon chambers. But with that said, that is it for this settlement. I am absolutely thrilled how this turned out. This is one of those settlements I've always struggled to build anything meaningful with. Usually I just cop out and do one of my tower builds just so that it's there. But here, I really wanted to try something unique by my standards, and I really feel like I captured that here. Going with two different military-style, barrack-style buildings, but building them more like a traditional fort really helped take me out of my comfort zone, but really added a lot of fun as I played around with getting stuff to snap together in a way that it doesn't normally snap, getting things to interact the way that they don't normally do, and getting this new style of structure that I don't normally play with and getting it to work well with the other types of skills that I've already developed. But I would really love to hear your thoughts and experiences on the matter. Is this a structure that you think you would like to play around with? Is this a style of structure that you would like to see on Commonwealth Contractor? Definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, it's been real, stay safe, and I hope to see you all here next time on Gray Gaming.